Good morning, the Comptroller-General of Nigeria Customs Service, Colonel Hameed Ali, retired. Good morning, members of his entourage. Good morning, Chairman, Presidential Communications Team, and other members of this team. Good morning, our colleagues. This morning is the 55th edition of our special briefings organized by the Presidential Communications Team. We'll all agree that in the past 7 years, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has laid the foundation for the expansion of the revenue base of the nation's economy and ensured a steady progression in the economy through institutional reforms. The Nigerian Customs Service has contributed its quota in the management of the economy, especially through exemplary accountability that has been instated by the management of the organization. Today's briefing to be anchored by the CG, Comptroller-General of Nigeria Customs Service, Colonel Hameed Ali, retired. We highlight some of the incentives and critical policies that have been emplaced by the CG and his team to support the President's vision to further grow the economy and sustain the anti-corruption fight. Colonel Hameed Ali will also update us on the ongoing reforms in the Nigeria Customs Service and the strides made in the key aspect of revenue collection, especially against the backdrop of the revision of projected revenue by the NCS from 1.33 trillion for the 2022 fiscal year to 3.019 trillion. We will also get to key areas of collaboration between the Nigeria Customs Service and other departments and agencies of the federal government in the revenue collection reforms instituted by the President Buhari administration. As usual, the CG will come here and he will speak with us for about 20-30 minutes, after which he will take questions from our stakeholders, both in this room and joining us online. On this note, I would like to invite the CG to this podium to speak with us for about 30 minutes. CG, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
I believe there was no protocol miss. But let me, at this juncture, acknowledge the presence of my good friends, the Special Advisor on Media, and the Special Assistant on Media, and all other colleagues up here, and of course the members of the press that are here with us this morning. Let me begin by thanking God for keeping us alive and healthy to be able to be here and present our own side of the story. Let me protest to the master of ceremony or the coordinator that you forgot that I have been given CFR. and it is a well-earned CFR. So I jealously guide it. So next time, please don't. Well, let me, first and foremost, having thank you, there's a joke that I learned when I was a young man. And has to do with it. Forgive me, those of you who are Christians. It's a reverend father who has a grandson. And every time he wants to go and preach, he takes him along to the church. But they always stay at the, what they call it, the small room before before appearing on I've forgotten the name, but maybe a holding bay, if I may use that. So, and the young man observed that anytime his grandfather would go before the attendees, he would kneel down, pray, and then step into the church and start preaching. So one day he became curious and asked, he said, "Grandpa," he said, "Yes, my grandson. Why is it that every day before you step onto the podium, you will kneel down and pray?" Then the old man looks at him very curiously. I said, "You know what? Anytime I am about to step there, I kneel down and pray to God to let me say what the people want to hear." So the young man quickly retorted. He said, how come God does not have to answer your prayers?" So I hope my prayers will be answered. Well, having said that, let me start by thanking you for inviting us, and I'm very glad that the coordinator, the person presenting us has completely covered the prelude of my presentation. So I don't need to repeat that because I am pressed of time. So let me go to the background and then we move forward. But let me say this. For those who knew when I took over the realm of administration of the Nigerian Customs Service, there was 3 key mandates that were given to me by Mr. President. And that's what we now today call in Nigerian Customs Service as the 3 R's. And the directive was very clear. When I was sent to Nigerian Customs Service, Mr. President said, "I want you to go there, reform the service, restructure, and then raise revenue." Those were his clear words, and they were very unambiguous. So I knew when I stepped out of his office, I know where I'm going, and I know what I have been given. So today, in my press briefing, I will stick to these 3 mandates. I will address each one of them as to how far we have been able to make progress and what are the challenges, and then what we need to do going forward. The reforms that I talked about, which is the first part of it. And why do we choose reform as the first part of it? Because human capital is what makes an organization. If you're not able to get the human capital positively on your side, then the chances of success is very, very dismal. So in arranging those mandates, Mr. President is very much aware that we must first and foremost take cognizance of the human capital. And what do we do to make sure that you align the 15,000 plus Nigerian Customs men and women along the line and the path of progress. So what we did was we created, first thing we needed to do is to look at our training and remodel it. And the best way we could do that is to come up with, we borrowed a leaf from the army, thanks to where's the colonel. We borrowed a leaf from the army. That was where I came from. We have what was called Nigerian Army TRADOC. TRADOC is Training Doctrine Command. It is the house where training is built, skewed, and then screwed and modeled to fit the people you want to train. So the first thing we decided to do is to create a training and doctrine department responsible for the development of doctrine for mental and moral and ethical direction of officers. Because you must do that to get the captain. Then we introduce the implementation of the simplified modern business, because now that we have now found a focus for the human capital, what is next is in our own business of import, export, processing. So we address the issue of implementation of simplified modern business process, which of course, if you know, one of the gridlock we do have at the port is because we have so extensive procedures of clearance. There are over, then I think about 17 or so, or less than that, that you have to go through from one table to the other to get it sorted out. So the first thing to do is to reduce that time frame in order to make sure that an importer will not incur additional cost because he wants to clear his goods. Because if for every day after the first, how many days, 1 week, you begin to accumulate demurrage. And for every day the container stays in the hands of the terminal operators, they charge you. So the best thing you can do for any importer is to fast track the process of the clearance of this. So we address the issue of simplified process of export import. Then we look at, because there are so many, if you look at the procedures. Huh? Oh, okay. I'm too far from it. Are you recording? Yes. Okay. All right. Well, let me raise my voice. Probably it will balance for the. So what would we look at then? Having looked at the simplified and how we can reduce the processes and to a minimum number, so as to fast track the process. Then the next thing is to harmonize the process, because then in the custom palace we have different codes. If you know, those of you who have once cleared, or those who are importers behind the scene, or custom agents behind the scene, you know the processes. There are codes. There are HS code, what we call HS code, which are the harmonized system code. And those are what we use to identify categories of goods and what percentage of tariff is allocated to them. We haven't done that, then we now got back to addressing the issue of the human capital, and that's what is in there. Having looked at what we need, then we quickly look at the capacity building. We need to build capacity in terms of our men. We need to come up with models of courses that needs to move the people to the level of the best practice globally. Custom, as you know, without saying, is a global organization. We have what we call the World Custom Organization, which we all belong to. And under that umbrella, we operate virtually the same codes globally. We harmonize our system globally. So we need to get our officers to that level where their own capacity to be able to perform at the best practice globally is attained. Then, of course, we try to create balance and control through optimal technology deployment. Today, I make bold to say Nigerian Customs Service is one of, if not the best, in terms of technological development and process. Our NICE 2, which we are very soon going to move into the trade modernization system, is the best. On that platform, we have, as of today, over 37 agencies that are key in there. And we believe that for us, that is the single window for Nigeria, because all trading partners key into that. They have access to it and they work on it. So we believe that that should be our single window as moving forward. But for today, that is our platform of operation. And everything we do in terms of import and export processing is automated. It's automated. Then, of course, we now need to partner with our mother organization, and that's the World Customs Organization, which is the organization that gives us the impetus to be able to access some of these things. So we work closely with them, and and then of course we have the PwC that help us to carry out the integrity perception survey among officers and stakeholders to identify weaknesses and create an organizational approach to issues concerning integrity. Well, if you know, integrity is one of the, yes. No, well, the camera is facing me. The camera is facing me. Don't worry. Okay, thank you very much for the correction. All right. Integrity is one of our biggest concern in what we do. And because the custom operation gives so much discretion to officers, and therefore, just like bankers, we are also under the same pressure and monitoring to ensure that our officers are optimal in terms of integrity. So we needed to work with not only our own organization, global organization, but also private audit firms like PwC, Pricewaterhouse Corporation, to be able to do some survey and give us a position as to where we are with regards to our integrity. And thank God we have done exceptionally well in that, and we will continue to improve on it. There's no end to it, but I believe that the more we work on it, the better we will get. And at the end of the day, the better the result that we will have. So we move from, next slide please, from the reforms that we put in place, and then we now look at the structure. What do we need to do with the structure? Is what on the ground good enough for us to be able to execute optimally our mandate, or do we need to tinker with it? And I want to assure you that between me and the management of the Nigerian Customs Service, having looked at it holistically, we believe we need to unbundle some commands and units. Unbundling means we have to open up, create more commands in order to cover more areas, and then create more specialized commands to take care of specialized areas. And that we will see. Unbundling of commands units and creation of new commands to achieve strategic objectives. Example, non-intrusive inspection area, that is the scanners. We need to have specialized people to manage the scanners. We also look at the marine, because that is a special. The gentleman sitting right behind you is a marine officer to the core. He grew up in that sector, and he is our expert when it comes to marine. So we have to boost that, because we are not only fighting smuggling along the land borders, we are also fighting smuggling along the creeks. We are also collaborating with Nigerian Navy to ensure that we monitor our high seas. As of today, we have seagoing boats that we use for patrols on the high sea. So the marine aspect is very, very important to us. And also, we have an air wing. I'm sure a lot of people do not know that Nigerian Customs Service has an air wing until we closed the border. That was when we maximally used our air platforms. At that time, as of today, we have one jet aircraft, Cessna, and then we have 2 Bell helicopters. Those are used for patrols and the monitoring of our border. We are in the process of acquiring additional aircraft. Hopefully, if we get the approval from FEC, to buy 1 more additional operational aircraft. And that's to enhance our capability to be able to monitor our borders and effectively implement our mandate of anti-smuggling. So we also, the oil and gas is expanding. There are so many free trade zones now that have oil in them. So we needed that, and we created a separate command to be able to look after the free trade zone and ensure that effective operational capability is entrenched. Then, of course, we get back. We can, at any time we're doing these things, we must continuously look at the human aspect of what we're doing, and then we enhance human resource management by ensuring proper element of officers and men, define clear paths for career progression, and ensure promotions based on merit. You may know that when I came into Nigerian Customs Service, there were promotions going on quite okay, but I must confess that there was no standing operational procedure for promotions. And what will kill the morale of officers is not knowing when they are due for promotion and when they should be promoted. We, at the management level, we set up a committee and came up with an SOP. And that SOP clearly defines time frame for officers. How many years would you spend on a particular rank? And at what time would you be qualified for a promotion exam? And if you pass your promotion exam, how are you, what becomes of your promotion? All those ones were well articulated in our standing operational procedure. So today, every custom officer knows he can project in the next 5 years, 10 years. He knows where he's going to be, all things being equal. So, and that helps a lot in terms of morale and in terms of commitment. So that, having put that aside, then we enhance the welfare of officers and men. Salary, we were able, and I would thank Mr. President, because we made a proposal to use certain fund that is by law being collected by us, and that's the CISS, Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme. That is a 1% FOB that is collected on every import that you bring in. It was meant to finance pre-destination export agents. But gradually, the World Customs Organization realized that if you allow the departing goods agent to now inspect your container and then give it a clean bill, you never know. somebody who is not a national, he does not have your interest. You will find out that probably by the time the container lands, there will be grenades in those containers. You never know. So what in effect is that the World Customs Organization protested and said we must now revert back to ensuring destination inspection. So therefore, the use of contractors were removed, and that fund is now used to finance customs to be able to carry out the destination inspection. And that's why we acquire scanners and improve our import-export capability. So part of that money is what we requested, Mr. President, and he graciously approved part of it for us to augment the salaries of officers. I must confess, when I came in, I was a bit disappointed. Coming in from the military, I discovered that customs that is expected to generate revenue, and with a lot of discretion, is paid very minimal. Their salary was one of the lowest. So together at the management, we came up with this process, and we were lucky, very lucky that we have a listening president, and he graciously approved. So today, I must say, customs officers are comfortably paid what is due to them. That is one. Then, of course, in the area of accommodation, housing, both office and residential accommodation, the Nigerian Customs Service, just like other military and paramilitary organizations, are the ones that have been up to today approved to have barracks. It's not every government agency that can retain barracks, but we are lucky to have been under the list of those that should retain barracks. So based on that, we have to improve seriously on our housing facilities. As at today, we have what we call the 16-man rank and file, which we build normally at the borders. Prior to this time, you find out that my officers rent houses from smugglers. It may interest you to know that the rich people at the borders are always the smugglers, and they are the ones that have properties. And of course, my officers cannot stay under the rain and so on, so they have to find a roof. And the only way you can, the first people that have the roof are smugglers. So there's a chances of compromise. So we now felt the first thing to do is to remove them from that enclave and give them independence by making sure that they have their own accommodation and they are comfortable. And we have invested so much in that area. Today, I must confess that most of our officers are comfortably accommodated in their own residential quarters. And we also equipped our offices, modified a lot of things, getting a lot of computers, and of course, we also ensure that we developed what we called an SOP for posting. Prior to my coming into customs, posting is not standardized. You find an officer may stay in one place for 10, 15 years, and then he becomes a landlord. Chances of compromise becomes more. And so the only way you can minimize that is to ensure regular movement of officers. So we agree at the management that the maximum time an officer should spend in one posting place is 3 years. After 2 to 3 years, you must be moved to another place, so that familiarity between you and whoever uses where we are will not be there. Secondly, that also gives our officers, since we are all over the nation, it gives them more experiences of all other areas. You find yourself today, you are in Enugu, and then tomorrow After 3 years, we move to Sokoto, and then probably next you are in Seme border. So it gives you a whole complete total picture of your areas of operation. So having done that, then it's also removed the chances of corrupting people. Then we also look at our healthcare facility. Today, those of you who probably live around Karu, one of the best hospitals today that can be compared to the national hospital is our hospital in Karu. We have virtually every equipment that you need there. We spent money because we want to ensure our social corporate responsibility is enhanced. It is one of the cheapest in terms of services. It's one of the best. And we only did not stop there. We signed an MOU with National Hospital. They have pool and pool of surgeons, experts. So we make use of that. And they always come to our hospital to conduct operations, to also do the normal, regular medical services. So that has given us a very strong pillar. Therefore, our officers are healthy. Those that, for any reason, fall sick are well taken care of. So these are welfare areas that you must not play with if you want your troops to be on alert. Then I must say this has to do with my background. When I was in the military, those who knows me are not too young to remember. I was wearing red cap. With them means military police. So I was in the military police most part of my service in the army. So I took that experience, and when I got to custom, and I discovered that dispensation of justice, and of course, enforcement, if you use the civil service format, whereby if somebody commits an act, you have to now send a query, and then he reply the query, and then you wait for this. By the time you even get to punishing the man, people begin to wonder, what did he do? Because they have forgotten. So the only way I thought we could fast-track this process for those who have criminal tendencies is to create a custom police. And we are lucky. The management approved it. The board of the Nigerian Customs Service approved it. So we have a custom police in place. And their mandate is straight. When you commit an offense, we pick you up, we put you under detention, and then do the 24-hour investigation, and you face the disciplinary committee, and God knows what happens from there. So it is fast-track our process of strictly enforcing discipline. And then we introduce a strategic partnership to meet the long-term goals of the service, boost inter and intra-organizational communication. When I took over, one of the first things I did was I realized that Nigerian Customs Service cannot effectively carry out its mandate without collaboration with other agencies. So I virtually visited almost every agency and request that we join hands to make sure that, especially those that operate within the marine subsector, those are very critical to what we do, from NPA to what is it called, Shippers Council, to NIMASA, that's right. So lots of them that operate within the ports area, we try to create a synergy. And this, when I mentioned the fact that 37 agencies are on our platform today, all these agencies that operate within the port area are on our platform. And so we interact on electronically. Those that we do is joint inspection with them. We interact electronically, the SSS, drug, NDLE, the quarantine people, and host of others. So for us to be able to fast track and do our business quickly, we co-join on the platform, and that is one of the bases of our collaboration with other agencies. Then, of course, we created, those of you who cares to watch NTA, anytime 30 minutes before the network news on Monday, you see customs program. We call it custom duty. That we felt was not good enough for us to be able to showcase what we do and enlighten and educate people. So we came up with the Custom Broadcasting Network, which is operational, and that is 100% customs process and procedures. We believe that is the best way we can educate people, enlighten people, and put them on the side of making sure that they do not go wrong in their day-to-day activities. I think that was then, of course, the organizational structure is then this edifice you are seeing now, hopefully in the next 2 months, we'll call Mr. President to commission it, is the corporate headquarters of the Nigerian Customs Service. Can you bring it back, please? Can you roll it back? Yes. Good. Can you just hold it there? Yeah, no, back. Okay, now we're getting there. Okay, hold it there. Can you hold it, Byron? Well, this will be the corporate headquarters of the Nigerian Customs Service, and it's going to be one of the most cheapest edifices that is ever built by any government. Because we have been very prudent, we have been painstaking. I have sacked contractors over and over, and we are still working. But I assure you, by God's grace, in the next 2 months, this edifice will be ready for Mr. President's commission, inshallah. It's located behind NCC. You know where NCC is? Yes. NIPC? Yes. Yes. Yeah? It's located behind NCC. For those of you who want to take a look at it and ascertain what I'm saying, it's an edifice that I think we are not spending all up to today. All we have spent on this is 19 billion. 19 billion. Nobody can give you this at the price we are taking. Nobody. So this is one aspect that then next, I think we also align our people with looking at it this way. The fight against smuggling, which is one of the toughest aspect of our part of mandate, is becoming tougher by the day. Smugglers are getting more sophisticated. We have encountered smugglers that are not only using AK-47, but they are using submachine guns. So we also have to modify our own operations. And in the acquisition of our vehicles, we used to use the Hilux. These were some of the boats we were talking. We used to use the Hilux, but we discovered that the Hilux has limitation when it comes to mobility in rugged areas. So we had to go for the Buffaloes. These ones are the ones that the military uses. These ones are the 5-gear speed vehicles. They can maneuver anywhere. And we have to configure them in a more combative way in order to create that fear among the smugglers. With this, we launched, I think we have 75 in our inventory today. We are now going to buy in the next 2022-2023 budget year. We hope to get multiple hundreds of this into our arsenal, because we have found out that they are very effective and very, very convenient for our own operation. Then we also, like I mentioned, we have been acquiring boats, speed boats for the marine, and also seagoing boats for the high sea operations. As of today, in fact, I think last week I received the notice from, you see this, we launched these ones about 6 months ago, and we have now also, we've taken the delivery of these ones. And we are also, we have given a contract for, they've just, I received the completion certificate from the company that they have now built the additional 14 boats for us. So we continue to multiply on our arsenal with regards to fighting this. These are some of the boats that we, at a close look, these are some of the boats that we use for the creek, and some of the high sea boats are bigger than this and much more capacity. These are gunboats. They are mounted with, so we have to be as lethal as we can be. We're not only fighting smugglers, there are also pirates on the high sea. So we must be ready to be able to counter some of these things. So these are some of the arsenals we do get. And next, now the big one, and that is raising revenue. All these things we build is towards making sure that at the end of the day we'll be able to collect the revenue that is collectible for Nigeria. And we cannot do that without putting those things in place. And today, I must say, we have been able to perfect some of our system, from being electronically viable to the capacity of our officers to be able to do the job in the best way possible, and also based on equipment. We came up with a multi-strategic approach to blocking revenue leakage. What used to happen is not that there was no import or export coming in and going out. It is that there are so many leakages. And the best you can do is to come up with a system to make sure that you block these leakages. And that's what we do. It's not that the volume of import or export has increased far more than it used to be. It is that we have been able to we have succeeded as a management to identify those leakages, and we are working assiduously to block them one after the other. And it is the speed at which we block this that will increase our revenue generation from time to time. And that's why we move from 876 billion in a year to today, as at the last collection, we are at 2 trillion 130 something billion. So we're working, hopefully we will meet the target of 3.019. We are pushing, but also there are factors that are also pushing back. There are some anticipations that we did. There are things that we factor into our collection that we hope that if they had taken place on time, like the carbonated drinks that was approved for us. We didn't get to start collection until about half part of the year. So we've lost the first part of the year. Which that means whatever would have been collected would have been added to our realization of the target is not there. Also the telecommunication tariff. If some of you probably are aware of the little controversy that came up, whether it should be collected or not be collected, but fortunately it is an act of the National Assembly. And since it is an act, and signed by Mr. President. It has become a law, and we have to effect it. If it has to be reversed, then of course it must come back as a law to, and Mr. President will now assent to that notification, and then we stop. So we are working now to make sure that we collect that money, but we're late. We're late. We're not sure we'll get much from it between now and December. So those factors may affect our revenue, but despite that, the men and women of Nigerian Customs are working very assiduously to make sure that we collect whatever is collectible, so that Mr. President will have some money to be able to run the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is the graph vividly that you could see one to the revenue profile. As of 2014, you see where we were. And then 2016, when we came in, and then 2017, it began to rise, and then 2018, you saw where it's going, and then 2022. Now at 2021, now at 2022, we are at the 2 trillion mark, and it is our hope that we will get to the 3 trillion mark, if not at least to the 2.5 trillion by the end of the year. So this is the profile, and this, of course, gives you and the graph in terms of seizure. We do seize, there's no doubt about it. We do seize items, and one of the biggest seizure that we have been doing is rice. And we are lucky, and we thank Mr. President for agreeing with Nigerian Customs that we must put a stop to the importation of rice. And that one decision that has been taken has sustained this country. If we had not embarked on self-sufficiency in terms of the production of rice in Nigeria, within the COVID period, we would have had one of the worst crises, because then there were no ships coming from India or Asia to bring rice. I don't know what we would have ate, but we thank God that Mr. President quickly realized that and came up with the policy with regards to self-sufficiency. And our farmers took that as a challenge, and therefore the availability of rice that is produced locally is what has sustained this country up to today. And we are still working at that. We're making sure that despite the forces that work against us, because there's a lot of rice that is being brought into Benin Republic and then smuggled into Nigeria. What probably some of you would not know is that there are two types of rice. There's the sticky one, especially for the women, and there's the parboiled rice, which is the one we eat in Nigeria. Somehow, I don't know whether it is by colonization or whatever, all the former French colonies eat the sticky one. Those of who are the Anglophone colonies eat the parboiled one. If you go to Ghana, you find the same rice that we eat, and that's why they do jollof rice very well with it. Here we eat the same rice. So, but the highest importer of parboiled rice today in Africa, in West Africa, is Benin Republic. And why is this so? Our own people goes to all these countries, import this, and take it to Benin. And then when they take it to Benin, it's easier to smuggle along the borders into Nigeria. And that's why up to today, when you go to market, you'll still find foreign rice being sold. And that's why when sometimes customs decide to raise market, you hear all the noise. But it's because we want to remove this dependency. Secondly, we want to save the life of people. This rice that comes from this foreign land, the minimum time those rice have spent in silos are 2-3 years. Those that goes to buy this rice are Indians mostly and Lebanese. They will not buy the first class one because it's expensive. So they go for these ones that are less expensive. Because in those rice producing countries, after 2, 3, 4 years, if they cannot sell those rice, they dump it in the sea. So it is at the point of almost giving out this thing that these guys goes to buy this thing. And you must also understand that this rice does not preserve itself. They use chemicals to preserve it so that it looks fresh at any given time. So this is where the problem is. And that's why we are doing everything to make sure that we prevent and stop the importation of rice into this country so that we eat our own rice. Those of you who cook rice, I've said this many a times. Take the two, put it, cook it, cover it, over 24 hours. Open each one of them. Our own Nigerian rice and the imported one. Smell it. You will know the difference. You will hear the odor. Ours will be fresh. Ours will be fresh, and this one will have a distinct odor because it's chemicalized. It's chemicalized, and that's what we consume. And that's why you find a 22-year-old, 25-year-old having colon cancer. And you begin to wonder, how did it happen? It is this type of things that happen. So when you see us fighting and making sure that these things, help us please, those of you in the press. We want to save the lives of Nigerians. And we want to make sure that we become self-sufficient. Then we have what we call trade facilitation. I'm sure many of you know that. I'm sure we have been taken to task many a times that we are not supposed to be collecting revenue. We are supposed to trade, facilitate trade. But in a developing nation like ours, both two must go pari passu. You will have to facilitate trade and at the same time collect revenue because our revenue takes a position, a percentage in the collective purse that government spends. In advanced nations where they do not need the revenue we collect, they pay more attention to facilitating trade and they spend more time. But in our case, we must make sure that we balance the two because if you don't collect the revenue and you concentrate more on facilitating trade, then there's going to be problem. So what you do is try to balance the two, and that's what we're doing in the Nigerian Customs Service. So the fast track, we now came, prior to we have what we call the fast track. There are two processes of fast tracking clearance of goods. And the Nigerian system has what it called fast track, but it was mainly meant for manufacturing companies, so that when they bring in their raw materials, it can quickly be moved to their own companies, and then the inspection is done at their own premises, and then whatever payment they pay, so that they will have that time frame within which to be able to have their raw materials at the factory for manufacturing. But gradually now we are trying to expand that, and that's what we now move to Fast Track 2.0. The Fast Track 2.0 gives a room now for us to incorporate almost all importers, not only those importing raw materials for their industries, all importers, but it hinges on trust. On trust. You must be compliant. You must be compliant, which that means that over a period of time within which you import these goods, that you have been compliant, you have been paying your duty, you have not been you have not been cheating by under declarance, or you have not cut corners in such a way that you are dishonest. Based on a period of our own, then you will now shortlist you as a member of the fast track process. The fast track gives you the opportunity to clear your goods within a minimum time. Because we have the trust that if you tell us you brought razor blades in a container, we believe they are razor blades. Not that you tell us you brought razor blades and then when we open, we see granite or tiles or 3, 4, 5 vehicles that are loaded and then locked up, and you see the vehicles, they are all state-of-the-art vehicles. This is what happens. And that's why we believe the use of scanners is very key to the improvement of revenue generation. I hasten to say that our biggest problem with most importers in Nigeria, is that we are a little bit dishonest. We are dishonest. We are either undervalue. When it comes to declaration, we don't declare what, or you find a container, 40-foot container. The importer will put 3 items. The first item deep there attracts 20%. The middle attracts maybe 10%. Then he will now come to the last part of it and put those items that attracts only 5%. And when it comes to declaration, he will declare those that the entire container contains these ones that attracts 5%. If you don't have a scanner, it becomes difficult. Because to offload 40-foot container, it takes a whole day for you to see what is there. And that's why we keep pushing and making sure that we acquire scanners in order to make sure that we electronically examine our imports. And that will enhance our own collection. Because where you misrepresent what is there, the system will show us, and we will charge you for what is there, not what you say is there. So, as of today, very soon, I think by next month, we'll be launching, the Honorable Minister of Finance will be going to Lagos and Port Harcourt to launch the 3 mobile scanners that have been acquired, deployed, and are now functional. Those will increase the capability of Nigerian Customs Service in terms of clearance. First, it will increase the process, the speed of clearance. Secondly, it will increase our revenue because now there's no room for under-declaration. There's no room for misrepresentation of the goods that you have because these scanners can tell you exactly everything. It's an organic scanners that picks everything to the minutest detail, and therefore we'll know if you're telling lies or you're telling the truth. So that will help us. Then, of course, we also look at having covered the import-export. We have the excise and industrial incentives. That is the one that most advanced countries makes their money from, because most countries are highly industrialized, and therefore they collect excise far more than what they collect on import and export. Because for them, they export more than they import. They only import raw materials. In our own case, we import more of finished product than raw materials. Even the export, we export less raw materials than we import finished goods. That, of course, that's what creates the trade imbalance between us and the advanced countries. And what we hope, and I always say this, that as the Comptroller-General of Nigerian Customs Service, I'm looking forward to the day that we will be collecting more excise money, because then we now know that we are deploying our money inwards. We are spending our money within the country. Because for every duty, yes, we are happy, we collect import duty, but it then means that we are financing other industries outside Nigeria, because these goods are coming as finished goods, and we are spending our money to buy them. And that's why we're always running helter-skelter for foreign exchange. So it is our hope that gradually with the industrial policies of Mr. President, things will begin will change, and then we will begin to have more industries paying excise than collecting import duty. So what we have done in that area is to ensure that we come up with electronic process of making sure that we collect. Now that we have started collecting the carbonated drinks tax, it has increased our take by almost 10.2% since the inception of that tariff. We're also looking forward to the full inclusion of the telecommunication tariff, which will also increase our revenue. We're also looking forward to having other goods that will now come into the tariff line, because a lot of us, one of the things that we do that is also inimical to what we collect is that we grant a lot of waivers. We are a nation that loves everybody. You find an industry coming in and say, well, we've given it tax-free period for about 10 years. And then after 10 years, he's now applying for another 10 years. If after 10 years you have not matured enough to be able to survive, then you should die. You should die. There's no reason why we should keep giving you our hard-earned money. The money belongs to 200 plus million people, and then we give it as a waiver, and then you find companies under declaring their profit because they don't want to show that they are viable, and so they should pay tax. So we are working electronically and scientifically to be able to survey and get it to companies and make sure that we bring them to the tax table, because most countries globally survive on tax. It's only in Nigeria that we're afraid of taxing ourselves. We're afraid of taxing ourselves. We that collect revenue, I know those of us who are Christians, you know the story of the tax collectors. They are never liked by the society, but they are, again, a group that you cannot afford to do without them, because they bring in the goose that lays the eggs. So tax is very important. Then we also looked at other areas, fiscal and monetary policy enforcement. You are all aware that every year we have new financial act that comes in with new tariff line, with new changes, and then we have to adopt quickly and be able to put our system in line with the with the new act. As at last year, this year, because of the adoption of the tax on finished goods, we on carbonated drinks, we have to adjust our system to be able to capture that. And then, of course, the foreign exchange also has been dwindling. It goes forwards and back and forth. So we have to, at any time there's a change, within 24 hours, once central banks give us the new rate, we effect it. Because for any second you allow that not effected, are you not hearing? Am I running out of time? You can't call me as professor and ask me to speak for 30 minutes. I'm talking about my organization, and I'm talking about 7 years. So I'm not talking about one day. So allow me to allow me to give you. I'm trying to be as stingy as I can in this, but it's difficult to go through these things without explanation. And more so that custom is a very technical organization. If we don't explain, there may be some issues that may be misconstrued. So I'm sorry, but just I will round off, not too long from now. Okay, we also, I want to say here that when we as a management, we look at our system, there are so many changes that we effected. When I came to customs, we have the auction. The mode of auction was allocation then. they allocate the seized goods. What happens is that when we seize goods and get it condemned, and then get the court to forfeit it, then it now becomes federal government property. And it is at that point that customs, under the law, can now auction those goods. But I must say, it was not done the way it should be. So when I came in conjunction with the management, we sat down and reviewed the whole process. We now discovered that we can do it better, and we can generate more revenue by being transparent. So I made a proposal to Mr. President that we need to modify the procedure for auction, and he approved it. So we went through our electronic processes, get our ICT team to sit for 3 months, and they were able to come up with a platform. And that's what today we call e-auction. We auction all seized items, be it container or cars, online. Those of you who are familiar with the American auction, that's the same model we are applying. You just click on this thing. Is it 1,000 that you pay and then get on the highway, and then you click and you now view all the vehicles, because we put every vehicle online. You can view the vehicle, decide which one, and then make your bidding. If you're lucky to be the last bidder, by the time the time is up, then you are the winner, and then you pay and you go and collect your vehicle. It's as simple as that. So that has increased our revenue generation by some percentage. We also, excuse me. No, I'm fasting. You want me to break my fast? Thank you. Thank you for being so generous. So we developed that. Then in continuation of that, we also have what is called Vin Valuation. Prior to this, the establishment of the Vin Valuation, what we used to do is we have the valuation process of how to come up with the value of your vehicle. Is done using documentation, but we now, with technology and everyday growing, we now came up with a system, a platform today that all we need to do, because importers used to tell lies. There's one thing they call accidented vehicle. They will remove the bumper, remove the rear light, remove the front light, and then tell you it was accidented. And then, of course, would compromise with some of my officers. Then it will be passed, a brand new vehicle will be passed as accidented. Or you find a model of 2022, the agents will go and declare as 2015. And then they will work it out, and the vehicle will be passed, and you pay that duty for 20, because there's a depreciation value. So 2015 vehicle cannot be the same amount with 2022 vehicle. But that vehicle is 2022, but because there's a compromise between the agents and my officers, sometimes they get, so we developed this Vin Valuation. The moment you put the chassis number on the system, it will give you the history of that car. The day it was made, where it was made, the color when it was made, and how many years it has spent, if it has any the mechanical problem, you all get it. So it's for the custom officer, do not need to go and look at. You just give him this data, and he will tell you, this is it, and this is what you are supposed to pay as duty. It has tremendously increased our take when it comes to duty, and it has saved a lot of importers from having agents, what we call agents, what is it, microcosm, this thing. Because, you see, let me just divert a little bit and educate people. Sometimes an agent, most of our agents are not transparent. You import a vehicle, 2020 vehicle. You give him your documents and say, here's my bill of lading manifest and everything. Give me the bill of how much I'm supposed to pay. He will give you the correct rating, the correct everything, and then he will now tell you, pay that money into my account, because it was only my account that I can use to pay into the system, the single treasury account. You pay, you give him the money. He will remove that paper that he showed you, and then go and declare that car as 2015. So there's a depreciation. Whatever is the difference, that goes to his pocket. And that car will be cleared as 2015. Your custom papers will read 2015. Then when you are driving and feeling comfortable on the highway and a custom officer stops you and say, please, can I see your custom papers? And you give it to him because you are confident you did everything right. Then he looks at it and says, sir. He quickly put the chassis number on his phone, and he tells him that your car is 2020 model, and you paid duty of 2015 model. Then there's short payment, and that's what we call. So from there, they say, no, sir, you have not paid the correct duty. We will hold on to the vehicle until you pay what we call demand notice. They will give you the additional fund. And then people begin to shout and call me and say, CG, this is criminal. How can I pay my car? Everything correct. And then custom is now telling me, is it not the same custom that cleared it? So I said, wait. What is the problem? The problem is simple. You went, and we are all victims. We are all victims. When I give an agent my papers and he clears the car, I don't even sit down to begin to look at whether the computation and everything is correct. The fact that he has brought my yellow sheet, I will just put it in the glove compartment, and that's all. And then go and register my car. But the truth of the matter is that the man has changed it. It's not what he gave you that he finally paid. So people must be aware. And that's why we said, as of today, every time you want to either buy a car or agent is with this system, you can do your transaction on your own. You put your VIN number, put this in, and get on the platform. It will tell you how much you're supposed to pay, including all charges. You can effect your payment online. And all you need to do, if you don't want to go and collect it, you can get an agent to go and process and collect your vehicle for you. Simple. Simple. So it saves all these misgivings. Then, of course, I made mention of the special economic zones. These are areas that we need to pay more attention to. We are training our officers more and more. It's an area that is expanding by the day. And Nigerians are buying into free trade zones faster than anything else. And that's why we initially told you that we had to create separate commands to be able to meet that aspiration. And today, there are about 42 registered free trade zones, of which 25 are currently operational in the country. And then the rest will soon be on board. And then these zones have attracted investment of over $36.6 billion in foreign direct investment, and over 255 billion naira in local investment. So there's a lot of massive investment going on there. And some of you who probably do not know, the free trade zones are a country within a country in terms of their production. You can bring in raw material, produce it in that free zone, and export it without paying anything to Nigeria. But if you want to introduce the finished product into custom territory, you have to pay duty. The only difference is that in this case, you pay as if you are bringing the raw material into the country, not a finished product. Not a finished product, because you have added value to it. So if somebody is bringing the same material but imported as finished, he pays higher tax than you. Because you are only paying for the value of the raw material. So this, and I'm sure that's why many operators are now taking leverage of the free trade zone, because it gives them a little percentage. And this. So we also have the one that has just come up recently, and in conjunction with NPA, we have now created the export terminal. We used to have problem where we combine both the import and export terminals as the same platform. And therefore, you find out that sometimes when the ships that brought in goods are still bathing, you cannot take out goods. So it creates a bottleneck for those who are exporting their goods. And in most cases, we export raw materials. So if they stay longer in the port, they get rotten and spoiled. So in conjunction with export, with NPA, we have now completed and established an export terminal. We will be creating more, but the first one is the one at Lily Pond at Ijora. It's functional now. All export goods goes there. All the examination is finished there, and then from there they move straight to the ships for export. So that has completely changed the order by which exporters export their goods. And then, of course, our fulcrum, and that's the modernization. If you remember, if you recall, I made mention of the fact that one of the things that we pay attention to particularly is the electronification, the ICT aspect of our operation. And that is what we have been pursuing for a very long time. Fortunately, now we have gotten the e-process approved. The modernization, the concessionaires have signed all the agreement. Very soon, we'll have a full-fledged modernization process that will take up. And that will give us an end-to-end electronic system. It will not only enhance our revenue, it will also create room for us to be able to secure this country with regards to imports of illicit goods. It will also give us the chance to be able to connect with the global best practice, because then it will also give us the chance to monitor and completely be able to monitor and protect our borders. It is also a system that will enhance our day-to-day administration, because at the advent of the completion of this project, the entire process in customs will be automated, which means everybody from CG to the last person will not have paper. No more paperwork in custom. Everybody will have to be connected to the computer. With them means fast business, fast, speedy clearance, speedy processing. So our hope is that this, once it comes into place, we hope the revenue will grow exponentially, about 30%, hopefully every year, by increase with regards to the entire project will be about 20 years, and I think about 3.8 or so billion dollars will be invested in the entire project, and we hope that by the time we are fully automated and it takes off, at the end of the 20 years, we are hoping that Nigeria will be able to make about $176 billion from that project. And it is the only project today in this government that is futuristic. It is the project that has now keyed into Mr. President's policy of diversification of revenue sources, because this one will be non-oil revenue source, and is something that for us in custom that we hold close to our heart, and it is our belief that at the end of the day, when it's fully automated, we would get to the best of what we require in terms of security, in terms of revenue, in terms of making sure that our processes are properly aligned with global best practice. Then, of course, they say, if you don't blow your trumpet, nobody will blow it for you. So all this that I'm saying, in the course of our doing business, there are agencies and people that looked at what we are doing and give us a handshake and say, well done. And I think NIDA is one of them, being our regulatory body when it comes to ICT products. We've won, as you can see on the board, 2 best awards, Best E-Governance in 2015 and then Best MDA category 2015. The Nigerian Telecommunication Award also 2015, Best Use of Social Media Government Agency, and then of course 2015 to date, representing the West Africa and the Policy Commission. This is a way of saying, recognizing our importance in the WCO, that we were members of the Policy Commission, which is the biggest body of policy formulation of WCO. We've been a member until this year when we ascended to the position of the vice chair of the sub-region of the custom, which is West and Central Africa. That also was bestowed on Nigeria because of our excellence in performance. So today we are holding the seat of the vice chair of the entire West and Central African sub-region of the WCO. And that's why we had to relinquish the Policy Commission position. And also, we have the Nigerian Technology Award 2018, Best in Emerging Technologies, Federal Agency, and then Most Dynamic and Innovative Innovation, Federal Agency Public 2021, and then of course, like I said, we are today the sitting vice chair of the Central and West African sub-region of the World Custom Organization. With this, I would want to thank you, and I hope that I've been able to, as I said in my prayers, say what you want to hear, and then we'll see when the questions begin to come up. Thank you very much.
We can have you standing for that.
No, don't worry. My boss stood for 4 hours, so yeah? Those breaks were very good.
Thank you very much. That was the Comptroller-General of the Nigerian Customs Service. As you know, he had to take his time to let us know what the NCS is doing. You know the profile of NCS, one of the top 2 revenue earning organizations for Nigeria. As NNPC is no more doing what it's supposed to be doing now. We rely on National Customs Service and Nigerian Customs Service and FIRS to give us our salaries. Thank you very much, CG. It's one thing for you to tell us what you'll be doing and how you've been impacting on the economy. Let us see whether our audience agrees with you, sir. The way it goes is that we take questions from here in a batch of 4. Then you'll answer, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But I'm sure you have said a lot. People won't need to ask you plenty. Abi, are you going to ask? The chairman has recognized the first 2 ladies. That's Ruth from Bloomberg and Adesua Arise, Choji from Vaughan, and the chairman from none. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, CFR. Congratulations. Just 2 days ago, at the closing of the ministerial review retreat, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, CFR as well, raised the issues about government agencies doing beyond what they do. And your agency was one he mentioned. He said immigration must do more than issuing passports, and customs must do more than generating revenue in response to our porous border and improving border security. We hear so much about customs generating revenue, but not so much about the security. And we do all know what's happening in the country when it comes to arms, ammunition, and our porous border. So what exactly is customs doing in that regard? And what has been hindering you achieving successes such as the revenue aspect in that regard? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Olurumbi. I write for Bloomberg, and I want to ask a question regarding the revenue. I want you to confirm if you actually said the previous revenue collection was 876 billion a year, and now has gone up to 2.1 trillion a year. And I want to also follow up on that. How much do you have in your target for 2023? Seeing that you're expecting to, you said that some things came up that you lost half a year in revenue. So how much do you think you can raise in 2023? Thank you.
CG sir, my name is Timothy Choji. I report for Voice of Nigeria. Just a little addition to what Adesua asked earlier. Still talking about borders. I'm glad you mentioned something about automation. When you get fully automated, it will help you secure the borders. But before then, sir, we've been hearing both your organization and the Immigration Service talking about the porous borders. Is there nothing you can do before then? Maybe do something to secure the borders. Maybe, I know it will be very expensive, or maybe talk about maybe raising fence or something around our borders, because even if it will take us 20, 30 years to do that, I think it's worth it because of the kind of revenue that is being drained from the same borders. Thank you.
Yeah, CG, my name is Ismail Yusuf with the News Agency of Nigeria now. I had wanted to ask a question on 2023 revenue, your targets, although she has asked it. But let me quickly ask on this issue of import waivers. Are you still granting? Yes. In view of the serious revenue challenges facing the country, are you still granting import waivers? And if yes, what are these items?
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Let me thank you all for these incisive questions. And I'm sure I will try to attempt answering. Where I have problems, my experts on my left will help me. Let me Arise TV. The issue of border security. If you have been following the story of how we are working to make sure that we secure the border. First, you remember in 2019, we closed the border. That was done to ensure that illicit items are not brought into this country, one. Two, to ensure that rice, which is one of the areas we want to make sure that we block, is not also brought into this country. And also to ensure that between us and our neighboring countries, that we uphold the sanctity of the ECOWAS protocol, because those who are being breached by our own brothers across the borders, and we felt the only way we can send this message to ensure that they align themselves with the protocol is to close our borders and agree. And we did that. after about 3 months of forth and back, we agreed on the constitution of what we call the Joint Border Patrol Team. Today, we have a conglomeration of the Army, the Air Force, and all other security agencies that have come together under one roof to ensure the security of our borders. That is being done. We have about 4 sectors from Cross River up to Yobe. Why are we not covering between Borno and part of Adamawa is because it's still an operational area. And therefore, the military has told us to keep off. They are handling those areas. And until they are secured, we will not be able to go there. But for now, between Yobe and Cross River, we have what we have established as the Joint Border Patrol Teams. And their job is to ensure that jointly we work towards making sure that our borders are protected. This team comprises of all these other security, paramilitary and both military. And Customs as the leading agency and the gatekeeper is the lead agency in this operation. So that's one aspect that we're doing so far. And then secondly, I told you that we are trying to increase our arsenal with regards to capability to be able to fight smuggling and ensure we monitor our border. The e-custom, the modernization process that we have has in it an inbuilt system for border monitoring, which will be both linked to cloud operations, IT system, and then today we are jointly working with the Air Force in the geospatial process to make sure that we monitor our borders and ensure effective control. We intend to get as more aircrafts as possible. We are talking with the Army. We will soon be training our own officers to learn to paradrop, so that when we are able to pick, not only being able to pick electronically activities along the border, we should be able to also drop our officers at every point to be able to intercept and interdict the actions of smugglers. So we're working assiduously to make sure that we protect our borders and ensure that our citizens live in good tidings. That is with regards to borders. So if, as of today, I believe that what we have put in place is working. It may not be as at the level where we want it, but I assure you that as responsive agencies, we are doing the best that we can to make sure that our borders are protected. Then the question of Bloomberg is the issue of target and revenue. Yes, I thought I mentioned it that we were given the target of 3.019 trillion for the year 2022. And I told you that we have, so far, as at the last take, we have collected 2.143 trillion. So we're working towards making sure that we get to the target. But I've also told you our challenges, that as a matter of fact, as a result of some of the factors, some of the key areas that were factored into the 3.019 was the collection of the telecommunication tax, which up to now we have not started. Also the collection of the carbonated drinks tax, which we started just in June or July. So we did not start at the time we were supposed to start, and those are factored. Those figures ought to have added to the 3.019. And but despite that, we're working very assiduously to make sure that we block other chances and see if we can, by the end of December, report to Nigerians that we have been able to make the 3.019 trillion target. Then, Voice of Nigeria. it's still issue on borders. Let me say, I don't think we should, we do not have the capacity and we do not have the money to build fence along our borders. Because even the United States that Trump said he was going to build, they discover that is not cost effective. It's not cost effective. And let me tell you, if the fact that you build fences does not mean that people will not still find a way of bringing. So what we are doing is making sure that we work closely with our neighbors. Is the best way of solving this problem. If we have a good understanding with our neighboring countries and we work based on the protocol of the ECOWAS protocol, all these things will stop. So we are working closely. As of today, between us and Niger, we have almost a perfect system there. There are virtually not, if there's smuggling going on, is very minimal. Where we have problems is our borders with Benin Republic. That's why we are having problems. And we are working with them to see if we can create a synergy to make sure that we protect ourselves and protect each other. So the best way to, is like, smuggling is like, I had to use this word. It's an old, is one of the oldest, do I call it career or exploit of human being. Between America and Canada, as sophisticated as they are, up to today's cigarette is being smuggled between those. So it is something that nations can only do the best to reduce it to the barest minimum. And that's what we're doing, to say we have stopped smuggling. Because even in your pocket, you can carry goods worth millions, especially for women. I'm sorry to say this. When they travel and they come back, they buy diamonds of millions. They put it in that bag, you will never know. You'll never know. So that's why sometimes when our custom officers say, "Can I see your bag?" they take offense. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of things can be smuggled through that. So how do we beat that? And that's why we are eager to deploy scanners at all entrances. Because if you go to advanced countries, you carry your handset, your bag, everything, you just put it in that thing. And everything in that bag will be seen. So if you have anything that is illicit, they'll pull you by the side. And then sometimes even cufflinks that picks up this, and they will ask you, is it gold? And you say, no, it's not gold. They put it in one machine to test whether it's gold or not gold. Then if it's not, they give you back. But if it is, then you begin to speak English. So the only way we can protect our borders is huge investment in technology, and then working closely with our own border, our neighboring countries, to make sure that we create a synergy whereby we will agree to protect ourselves from these illicit happenings. That way we can, and I'm sure not only customs, that is the policy of the Nigerian government, and that's what we're pursuing. Then none. Waivers, unfortunately, customs does not grant waivers. We implement waivers. The waivers are given under the presidency watch, but sometimes the powers are delegated to the Minister of Finance. And there are statutory waivers, which are waivers by the law, like, for instance, agricultural equipment, because we want to ensure that our people become agro-allied. So government decided as a policy to ensure that all imports that has to do with agri-equipment attract 0% duty. That is understandable, and that we implement. But there are other waivers that are given to manufacturers or importers that sometimes we question. And sometimes they're in huge amount of money. As a matter of fact, there was a time I had to raise this with the Minister of Finance, that, listen, If federal government decides to waive its own side of the bargain, we, Nigerian Custom, we are self-financing. We live on cost of collection. If we collect duty of 10,000, 7% of that 10,000 is given to us to administer ourselves. So if you give away that 10,000 as waiver, you have denied us the 7% of that. So we are saying if government decide to say we can waive the 10,000, but calculate the 7% and pay us, we are okay. We are okay. So the bottom line is that we don't approve waivers. We implement waivers. And I'm sure the president has also put in place guidelines for issue of waivers. But sometimes we cannot but raise eyebrow as to certain waivers that are given to some of our own importers. And that's the area. So I'm sure government is working on that, and we will streamline the regime of waivers. We know exactly those that falls within the statutory framework and those that are given based on probably the needs of those manufacturers. There are some that do abuse the process, but we're making sure that in our own client, when we do see that, we fish them out and raise the red flag.
Thank you, sir. I see plenty.
Sorry, let's take four. Do we have questions online? Just one. Okay, then let's take five now and then one.
5 questions. Yeah, I've seen it. Guloma 1, LTV 2, Code 3, Gloria 4, Chairman 5. Finished. So, there's one question online. Although it's not much of a question, it's, it says, CG, the problem on the ground now is flooding. So why are we talking about customs?
What are we talking about?
I know. Why are we talking about customs when the problem facing Nigeria now is flooding?
Is what?
Flooding. I know that customs has a way of alleviating our suffering through. I'm sure the CG will answer that. So where do we go from here? Start.
Blueprint newspaper. The CG has outlined a lot of achievements based on reforms in customs. My question here is what structures have you put in place to ensure that these laudable things are not reversed when you live in 2023? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So my name is Cyril Okonkwo, and I work for Voice of Nigeria, not LTV. CG, sir, part of the mandate of the Nigeria Customs Service is to work as gatekeepers, using intelligence to check vessels that are coming to Nigeria's territorial waters. The gatekeeper also checks what goes out of Nigeria. So my question is, have you been using intelligence to check and monitor vessels that are used for oil theft? If so, have you been reporting this to the relevant security agencies? Thank you.
Declaring?
Okay. Yes.
becoming expensive.
Okay.
Yes. My name is Ubala Musa from Deutsche Welle Radio CG. My question has to do with the cooperation between Nigeria and Benin Republic. You made mention of having a perfect working synergy with Niger, but you are still having issues with Benin Republic. Is Nigeria, are you thinking of probably recommending the closure of that border again in the event of continuing to having issues, the authorities in Benin Republic?
That will be welcome. Okay. Okay, let me start with the question online. I don't think that was a question, as a matter of fact, but let me try to say, yes, we are inundated with flood as of today, but customs is also part of what we do on a daily basis. So we cannot, because we are inundated with flood, neglect other areas of our endeavor. So I want to crave the indulgence of the person who asked this question to realize that it takes all aspects of governance to make success. And therefore, custom must do its own bidding. Other areas who are concerned with flooding and assistance to needy will also have to do their own part of the bidding. What we do as customs that affects, that maybe spill over to those who found themselves in those flooded areas is that Mr. President has approved that the seized fresh seized goods such as rice, tomatoes, and all things like of that sort are given to needies. In the past, we either sell them or destroy them. But with the coming of this government, and Mr. President being a very compassionate person, we look at it and review the process. And also all perishable goods that are seized by customs are now given to, primarily we are giving them all to the IDPs, because those before the advent of the flood and also the banditry, IDPs were the most pronounced needies. So he mandated Nigerian Customs Service to ensure that all perishable items are given to these people in order to alleviate their suffering. So while with the establishment of the Ministry of Humanitarian and Disaster Management, he also extended that mandate to say, after giving the states where the IDPs are, part of what you see should be given to the ministry so that they can look after the locally needies. And that's those people who are, by virtue of communal classes, they've lost their homes. Those that, as a result of this flooding, have lost their homes and their belongings, they should be assisted. And those that either by fire or certain disasters have been affected. So what we do now in Nigerian Customs Service is that once we get these seized items forfeited, then we distribute it. We give a section to the IDPs and then a section to the Ministry of for Humanitarian. Yes, of course. After certification by NAFDAC, we do not give, and it is the only area where we allow foreign rice to be consumed, because we make sure that it goes directly to the needies. And we do that to make sure that it's not poisonous. NAFDAC work with us very closely. Before we give a bag of rice, we must make sure that it can be consumed safely. It can be consumed safely. So then, I think in terms of what other things that needs to do for those in the flooded areas. I think the Ministry for Humanitarian and Disaster Management should be able to say more on this, which is beyond our own mandate. Then, yes, the next question was by Gloria, I think, on what having identified some of these miscreants and what they are doing, both within the custom and outside the custom. What are we doing to make sure that we either completely eradicate it or reduce it to the barest minimum? I will tell you, when we came in as a management, we looked at some of our punishment, and that's why today we are reviewing our law to make sure that we put in it some measures that will be strong enough to deter other people from committing crimes. Secondly, the available laws is being enforced to make sure that anybody, what we do with first is, if you are an agent and we discover that you have found yourself in any of these misdeeds, we block your license or suspend it. In some cases, we revoke it. And if we investigate and find out that you are really deep into it, we prosecute you. Many are now facing prosecution as a result of what they have done. Our officers, of course, if you find out, I think we have, within these 7 years, we have sacked more officers than custom has ever done, because we dismiss them. And if you are involved in the criminal aspect of a thing, then after dismissal, we make sure that we prosecute you. We take you to court and we'll get you prosecuted and jailed. So we're taking all the steps necessary to make sure that we enforce the laws and make sure that we deter people from committing these vices. Well, I will tell you, since we took over, I can give not even a percentage. I will tell you over 2,000 plus officers have been sacked out of the service. The next was vessel. News? Oh, okay. Well, this is a question people ask me many a times. Let me say this, and this is my personal view, but then I will answer the question. That what structures are we putting in place as a management that will ensure that some of the policies that we are operating and putting in place will not be revised. As a person, I always say this, and with all sincerity, that God will only ask me for the period I'm in custom. When I leave, I will not be held accountable. Nobody has held me accountable for what my predecessor did. And so because I'm afraid that my successor may not do what I'm doing, then I will stop working. It doesn't make sense. I will do the best I can, put the best I can, do the best as a management we can, so that we leave a legacy. And I've told people that in all places that I served in my life, I have one cardinal belief. If I'm going to spoil it, I'll spoil it to the fact that you always remember that I've spoiled the place. And if I'm going to work on it to make it better, I will do to the best of my ability to make it better, that you will not be able to reverse some of these things. And that's why when I started talking here, I said we first look at the human aspect of our operation. Reforms is very, very critical to any success of any organization. You must first and foremost get the people's psyche to be attuned to doing positive things. Because whoever is coming, he's going to work with the same group of people. And if you have been able to get them to align with the positive things, and they are deep into it and working, one person cannot come and reverse it. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can only improve on it. So, but what are we doing as a management? What we are doing is to make sure that whatever system we are putting in place, we make sure that we put it in the best form. I've told you, the best way you can modify and make sure that customs succeed is build technology. Put technology in works. And you cannot reverse technology. You cannot reverse technology. Once you take that discretion out of the hands of the human beings, once you remove that contact from person to person and use electronic, that cannot be reversed. And that's what we are doing. Then, the oil theft. The issue of, well, you see, the issue of oil theft. I hope you know that most of our oil are offshore oil that have been, and some of this oil that are stolen, according to the NNPC, is that they punched the pipe and siphoned the fuel. I've told you the Navy is the one that is given the primary responsibility of monitoring the high sea operation. NIMASA is also one of those organizations that has a primary role of making sure that our waters are safe. So for us in customs, we have more at the creeks and part of the high sea. So with regards to oil theft, we can only report what is brought in. But what is stolen out, we do not have much control over that. It's the Navy and sometimes the NIMASA that does that. But ours is, if we observe in the course of our patrol for smugglers, if we do accost anything to do with a ship that we do not understand, we pass that intelligence to the Navy. It is the Navy that intercepts, it is the Navy that enforces the Marines' laws. And that we work closely with them. As a matter of fact, they are helping us. Many a times they do arrest ships or batches that are carrying rice, and they hand them over to us. So also, if we have any intelligence that has to do with their own mandate, we pass it across to them. We work very closely, and I'm sure we're making a success of that. I think, then of course, the issue of high price of cars, high cost of clearing cars. You know what used to happen? And that's why I explained what I did. What used to happen is that we are used to under-declaration. You bring in a car of 2022 and then it's declared as 2015 or 2020, and then you pay that amount, which is of course far less than 2020. And people have been getting away with it. But now that the true history of the car, based on this Vin platform, is manifesting, people have to pay the right duty. And then they say there's high cost of duty. No, it is the right duty that you are paying than what you were paying before. So what you're doing is you are doing your service to the country, because you are now paying the right tax, and then we of course get the right money and then deploy it in the right places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comptroller-General of the Customs Service. My duty at this time is to say thank you to you and your team and to everyone that has made this happen. Those who came with the CG include DCG ED Chikan.
Is he on the table? No, Chikan we have left him behind to look after the. We have. Let me give you the names.
Okay, I think they cancelled them.
Okay, let me just give you the. Let me take the ones that are here with us. This one is with us. This one is with us. Okay. Then, okay, Dori. That's the gentleman.
Okay.
Acting Dori. Then of course this one is here.
Okay.
And then this guy is here.
Okay. Thank you. So the CG has done due diligence on the list I have here. We have DCG TM ISA of Tariff and Trade. Okay, you're welcome. Then we have DCG KC AKZ Excise, Industrial Incentive, and Free Trade Zones. Okay, welcome. Then we have ACGM Abakura. Okay, welcome. We have ACGAG Saidu, is it? No? No. Okay. Then SCAA Mewada.
Yes.
Okay. Then EE Dori. Okay. Thank you. So we appreciate your coming and CF. Okay, I won't forget the CFR this time. We thank the CG CFR for coming, and it has been a very insightful session, longer than usual, but you know that everything just worked together for good because Mr. President doesn't have a pressing event, otherwise he wouldn't have had that luxury of time. So we thank you very much. Then I also want to thank all members of the Presidential Communication Team. We thank Oge Modi, who does a lot of work week after week to ensure that this does not fail. So, Oge, thank you. We thank you, Che Adigibe too. Thank you. I've seen Biodun, I've seen Deji. No, I'm coming back to this side. Everyone, James, everybody that is in the Presidential Communication Team, we thank you. At this side of the hall, yes, I recognize him. At this side of the hall, we want to thank Colonel Felix Elaita, who works at the office of the Chief of Staff to the President. Thank you for joining us. And then Malam Garba Shehu, SSA Media and Publicity, and Loretta Onache, who is also a special assistant on social media. We thank you all, and we thank our friends in the State House media. Week after week, you have come to cover this, and you have reproduced faithfully. Thank you for doing so again this week. God bless you all. We usually take a group photo with you and your team, just in front.